Our sponsor for today's podcast is Lynn Junk Removal. They are a locally owned business in Northwest Ohio with competitive prices and friendly service. They currently serve Northwest Ohio and Northeast Indiana. Some services they do are demolition, moving, and junk removal. You can call or text at 419-230-8418 for an estimate or any questions. We'd like to thank Lynn Junk Removal for being a sponsor.
Hello and welcome back to the Flagrant Foul Fridays podcast. I'm your host, Christian, and with me today is Nick. Um, Today's episode is going to be a little longer than usual, most likely, because we're basically covering 2 weeks worth of news because of the Thanksgiving special and Thanksgiving break last week. We had to kind of delay that as we talked about in that episode. But nonetheless, I think it will be a fun episode. We have a lot to cover, like I said, so we might roll through some of it kind of quickly and then talk about other things that we find important. Yeah, do you have anything to add, Nick?
As of today's recording, yesterday was Christian's birthday, so happy belated birthday to Christian.
Yes, I am getting older. My college football dreams are over pretty much. You know, I'm not going to be a redshirt freshman, unfortunately.
I don't even know if you're eligible. Well, you haven't played a sport. I don't. I think you're still eligible because you haven't
Oh,
played.
because I haven't, I guess that's true, but they're not going to, take older people usually.
I don't know. They
We'll
took
see what
that.
happens.
They took that old guy.
Maybe I'll be the offensive coordinator for Ohio State. But we will get to that. All right, Nick, what's our starting topic today?
All right. Today we're going to start with college football as usual. What we want to start out with today is the college football pools because that's something that's new every week. I wanted to start with the current buys before the Big Ten championship, SEC championship, and the other championships. So we got Ohio State at the 1 seed with Indiana at the 2, Georgia at the 3, and Texas at the 4. Like I said, they have the bye as of right now until the championships are played. At the 5 seed, we have Oregon. At the 6 seed, Ole Miss, followed by Texas A&M, Oklahoma, Alabama, and Notre Dame. With the 11 seed being the number 4 conference champion and the 12 seed being the number 5 conference champion, which as of right now would be Virginia at 11 and Tulane at 12 if they both win. But if Virginia loses and Tulane wins, it will likely be JMU in, but could be Duke if JMU loses their conference championship. If Virginia wins and Tulane loses, JMU will be in if they win their conference championship, of course. And then something else I want to talk about is if they both lose, we will get JMU and Duke likely. And BYU, if they beat Texas Tech, which is the number 4 seed, Notre Dame will likely drop out as BYU will get the 4 seed, and Texas Tech will have to move back because they will not get that first round bye anymore.
You think BYU's gonna beat Texas Tech?
They got beat by Texas Tech earlier this season, but I think they could pull out the win if they're really wanting to make the playoffs this year.
Yeah, I mean, all their fans are talking about how they deserve to be in the playoffs and they're getting robbed, but I don't know. I feel like I haven't seen much from them almost every year that they've been quote unquote good. So I don't know if it happens. I guess I'll definitely keep an eye on them when they are in the playoffs, but I personally don't think it's gonna happen.
Yeah, we'll update you guys next week on uh, the conference championships and how that affects the CFP pools.
Right. And like I personally feel like Texas Tech is a little bit overrated this year. Like they have had a slightly harder schedule than Ohio State and Indiana. I'll give them that. But even then it wasn't what I would consider that hard. So I don't know if we've seen enough from them to say that they're a top 5 team, but I could be wrong.
Honestly, I don't think they're good enough to be number 4. I think there's better teams in the playoff. Um, like I know Texas A&M lost to Texas, but they've had a harder schedule, I would think, being in the SEC. Another good team, Oregon. They've had a tough schedule, but obviously they're in the Big Ten and they didn't make the championship, so they won't get the bye.
Speaking of the Big Ten, Ohio State and Indiana will make history as the first number one and number two teams to ever meet in the Big Ten championship. Now, it's happened in other conferences, but never the Big Ten. Um, which honestly, that's really cool. I think the Big Ten has needed something like this to happen for a long time. It seems like we're slowly working towards being considered an actual good conference.
Yeah, I think the addition of the NIL really helped the Big Ten get to this level because before the SEC was a powerhouse, and you know people do say that they were paying players, and they said they weren't. And honestly, either way, it doesn't really matter now. Everybody's got a fair advantage. They can pay players if they want to, or they can just let them walk and find a better university that'll actually give them what they want.
And I think adding teams like Oregon help as well.
Yeah, big name teams that were in the Pac-12, like USC and Oregon, that helped.
I
And
actually believe Washington will be good pretty soon too. They've just had unfortunate schedules, I feel like.
yeah, they didn't have a bad season this year. I think if they get recruits this year, and I think they can have a probably a playoff team in the next couple seasons.
I think they easily could have been ranked this year if they didn't play so many ranked opponents.
Yeah, I agree with that.
All right, so something that we found out was that the Heisman has been awarded every year since 1935, and every year ending in 5, except I believe the first year, a running back has won.
And as of right now, Jeremiah Love is at 4 with one of the he's like plus 3,000 odds right now.
Yeah,
So I
this
don't
has been one of the worst Heisman years, I feel like.
yeah, I seen that it's one of the lowest for quarterbacks especially.
Yeah, but I mean, let's say like Julian wins it this year. I could see him winning it again next year with even more impressive stats. So I don't know. We'll see. Another thing we want to talk about, Arch Manning scored 6 touchdowns against Arkansas, and he became the first player in Texas program history to have a rushing, receiving, and passing touchdown in a game. You don't see that very often, um, especially in college. I feel like you see that a bit more in the NFL, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I think that same week Jameis Winston ended up doing the same thing. He got a passing and receiving touchdown. I don't know if he got a rushing touchdown.
Yeah, I don't know about the rushing.
So Notre Dame in their game a couple weeks ago scored their first 21 points before the offense even stepped a foot onto the field. In that game they were playing Syracuse, they scored their first touchdown off a pick six. Their second touchdown was off a blocked punt, and they ended up scooping that and scoring that for a touchdown. And then their third touchdown was a pick six. And it was the first time Notre Dame had 70 plus points in a game since 1932, and that game was against Haskell. They finished 7-2 that season. I also want to mention that Syracuse had more completions than Notre Dame, and Notre Dame had 6 rushing touchdowns. Thinking about them being up that big, I can see why Syracuse had more completions. Notre Dame was probably just planning on running out the clock and ending the game sooner, since they're already up 21-0 off of turnovers.
Yeah, I also think Notre Dame just ran the ball a lot that game. Um, I haven't looked at their stats this season, but I wouldn't be surprised if they're more of a rushing team overall. All right, next we got Diego Pavia breaks Vandy's single game passing yards record with 484 yards in a game. Katron Allen becomes Penn State's all-time leading rusher. I know we talked about that in the first episode, I believe it was. Um, so congrats to him. He'll definitely go down in Penn State history. So Joe Jackson broke Kansas State's single game rushing yards record of 293, and the team set single season game rushing record of 472 yards. Even though they lost that game to Utah. Then we got Georgia won 48 consecutive games against unranked opponents, which is the longest active streak in the FBS. Alabama's 34 total yards allowed against Eastern Illinois was its fewest allowed since 1962.
Oklahoma has an FBS high 5 wins against ranked opponents this season.
This season is Vanderbilt's first with no losses at home since 1982. I know we talked about this before, but it's really good seeing them do well again. The win over Virginia Tech was Miami's first win outside of the state of Florida this season. Um, that's kind of insane.
Yeah, I think they had an away game. I don't remember who it was, and they lost that game, and then I think they lost their home game too because they're 10-2. I don't remember who the two people they lost to were, but their one outside earlier in the season was a loss.
JMU has won 9 straight games, the longest active streak by any group of 6 team. North Texas has scored 50 or more points 6 times this season, an FBS high. This is Tulane's fourth consecutive 9-win season. USC has lost 7 consecutive games against top 10 opponents, which is kind of crazy because historically they're one of the best teams.
Yeah,
But it sounds like, from what I'm hearing, they might have the number one recruiting class this year. So we will have to keep an eye on them, I guess. And I believe we play them next year, don't we?
I
Ohio
believe
State?
Ohio State does play them.
That would be a cool game. Army had their first tight end touchdown reception since 2008 in their win against UTSA. I mean, you traditionally think of them as a running team, but either way, that stat is um, unexpected.
Yeah, I agree.
And lastly, Penn State has 0 recruits set to sign for early signing day, and they currently have the 129th best recruiting class. Obviously, part of that is because they have no head coach currently. So, yeah, Penn State might be in shambles.
This was also as of yesterday. I saw today they currently have 3 recruits that are hard commits.
Well, good for them. They've got 3 people. All right. Now we're going to talk a little bit about the Ohio State game. This was just a normal game, nothing crazy, right?
A normal the game.
A normal the game. Well, first I want to talk about our thoughts. I know that me and you watched this together because you were at my house. And so we talked a little bit about it there, but what'd you think about the game?
I thought it was a good game defensively for Ohio State. Um they obviously held Michigan to 9 points, and they were able to hold them to, I believe, -1 yards in the fourth quarter alone.
Yeah, I thought it was a great game. Um, a lot of people were worried when Julian threw the interception and then we went down 6-0, which, by the way, was our biggest deficit all season, which is kind of crazy to say considering it's less than a touchdown and a field goal. But I really wasn't worried. I knew in the past when Julian made mistakes, which is rare in terms of interceptions at least, he usually came back and would do well. And I thought the second half especially looked great. Um, I'll admit there was some iffy calls, but I don't think that really mattered. I think Ohio State pretty much proved they were the better team. And from what I've heard, most Michigan fans would agree that they played terrible. One thing we wanted to mention was some couple facts about the game. So Jeremiah Smith flips off Michigan fans after the touchdown.
Yeah, I didn't see that during the game, but I saw it after the game, and I laughed when I saw that.
He even changed his profile picture to that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a lot to say about it. I mean, it's a bit unsportsmanlike, but at the same time, I'm sure the fans deserved it. I'm sure they weren't saying nice things to him.
I know it's unsportsmanlike, but given it was a rivalry, he probably thought it would kinda, I guess, intimidate them a little bit, like, kind of make them mad.
Well, and I think sometimes if you do stuff like that, it sometimes hypes up your own team.
Right.
Um, but yeah, I don't know. I also know Jeremiah is maybe a little different from what some of our traditional receivers would be like in terms of like uh behavior, I want to say. He really reminds me of like an SEC receiver, which makes sense because he was like Ohio State's first five-star receiver ever, right? Or in a long time.
I think it was in a long time, but he was getting hyped up by
Okay.
Marvin Harrison. He was getting hyped up by Emeka Ibuka, and and I don't
Yeah.
think any other player really hyped up the incoming receiver like he has been hyped up by his former teammates.
Yeah. And so I think that's part of it. Like he's not what you would consider like a well, Trevion Henderson, I guess, if you want to look at like well-behaved players, I guess. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
I also want to say it was Jeremiah Smith's birthday during that game.
It's true. It was.
So maybe he was acting that way because he was so confident it was his birthday. He got a touchdown on his birthday. He was having a good game.
That's true. Yeah, I don't know. It's a rivalry game. And he's young. Like we're not gonna hold him to every action he ever makes, but it was worth noting. Next we got Bo Jackson had more yards than Michigan. Yeah. I mean that speaks words to our run game. I know in the past years the team that had the better run game won. So we finally got that established, and then also clearly our defense did well. I mean, they didn't even score a touchdown. That's about as dominant as it gets. Um, Michigan didn't score the second half. I think we mentioned that. And Ohio State became the first team to hold first 12 opponents under 17 points since Florida in 1975. So again, that just speaks to how good our defense is this year. And then the last thing that we want to talk about is something that's been going around lately, talking about how Ohio State's headsets went out in the second half. Ryan Day said they planned for something like this because he had an inkling that something like this might happen. Um, I don't really know what to make of this. I've seen clips online with some of the Michigan, I guess, workers standing nearby. I don't know if they were trying to help. Some people are implying that they were trying to cheat. I don't think there's enough evidence to say that they cheated or not. It could have been a weather thing, but it's certainly something worth talking about. And I'm curious if the NCAA will open up an investigation in the future. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah, I think this instance, like Ryan Day kind of hinted at, he thought Michigan had planned that. I mean, I saw the video and he winked at the media after he said that. Honestly, it could go either way. It was snowing. They could have had bad connection up to the the box, and they could have had bad connection to the field because of the weather. I think, or it could be the other way. You said you've seen Michigan staff around the team, so I could see it going either way. And I don't know if there'd be an investigation or not because they just finished their investigation and they probably figure why would they try to do it again if they just got caught.
Yeah, I mean, unless like something actually comes out, like a text message leak or something, I don't think there's going to be an investigation. And at the end of the day, we won the game, so I guess it doesn't really matter.
So after the game on Saturday, Julian Sand broke the regular season completion percentage record, which I think I had seen, but I don't think we mentioned in the previous episode. Um,
I think we might have mentioned that he was on pace, but I'm not sure. We were definitely watching it outside of the podcast, that's for sure.
he's been on pace for a couple weeks, and he finally was able to break it because the season ended. And the stats are since 1956, which I don't know if that's when completion percentages were tracked. But it's a minimum of 14 pass attempts per game. And Julian Sain finished with 78.9, and he broke that record, which was originally held by Bo Nix, which was in 2023 at a 77.4.
which was tied with Mac
Yeah, he
Jones.
was tied with Mac Jones for his 2020 season.
Uh, One thing I would like to note is we got Joe Burrow at fifth with 76.3, and the legendary 2019 LSU team. Um, Shadur Sanders is actually on there at eighth with 74. And then we actually have two people that made the list this year, the other being Carson Beck on Miami. He is now in sixth place with 74.7. So I don't know, I don't think we mentioned this earlier when we talked about the playoff bracket, but the conference finals this year are between Georgia and Alabama, Ohio State and Indiana, who are both undefeated, so that will be a fun game. Even though I believe College Game Day is going to the Georgia Bama
Yeah, they're
game.
going to Georgia Bama.
I mean, I can't say I blame them. It probably brings in more money, but
I also saw people were saying that they'd rather not have Ohio State in back-to-back weeks and have something different.
I guess that's fair. But it's also the Big Ten's first time ever having a 1 and 2, so it feels like kind of a historic moment that they're missing out on. Then we got Virginia versus Duke, and then lastly BYU versus Texas Tech. I think all of those games should be pretty good. I predict some of them will probably be blowouts, but we will see. All right, now we're going to talk about some of the firing and hiring news over the last 2 weeks. And I think we're just going to run through this kind of quick unless we have something to add. So, Cal fires head coach Justin Wilcox after 9 years with the program. This was after their loss to their rival Stanford. Cal is now 6-5, and his record with the program was 48-55. So yeah, I'm not too surprised about that. But I don't know if bringing in a new coach is going to make them a ton better, but I guess time will tell. They're actually working to finalize a deal with Oregon defensive coordinator Tosh Lupoy as their next head coach. We will see how that goes. Uh, Probably the biggest news, James Franklin has been hired by Virginia Tech to be their head coach, and he flipped 7 former Penn State recruits. Um, I've thought for a while now James Franklin probably would do well on a team that is still competitive like Virginia Tech, but not necessarily to the same standard as something like Penn State. Uh, yeah, what are your thoughts on that?
I think he could take Virginia Tech to potentially the playoffs with him having a big name. He flipped 7 players just this year. I think they could bring in bigger recruits in the coming years, and I guess we'll see if he can win the big games at Virginia Tech to get him into the playoffs.
Yeah, I know. I think that'll be something worth following, and I wish him the best. From what I've seen, he seems like a very nice guy, like when it comes to outside the game and interviews and stuff. So, even though he's sort of someone we despise on game day, overall we gotta wish him the best. Stanford hires Trevita Pritchard, who was the QB coach of the Commanders. Both Cal and Stanford have new coaches after their rivalry game. And then another big news is Brian Kelly has been fired by LSU, and as a result, they owe him $54 million. dollars.
Yeah, now LSU actually owes 3 coaches pay since they've signed Lane Kiffin. Their coach for their national championship team still is getting paid money through LSU. So moving on, Ole Miss's offensive coordinator Charlie Weiss is returning to Ole Miss instead of going to LSU with Lane Kiffin. Florida is also working on a 6-year deal to make Tulane's head coach John Summerall the head coach at an average of nearly 7.5 million per year. Ole Miss is working to make their defensive coordinator Pete Golding their new head coach, and they said it's going to be permanent instead of a temporary coach. Arkansas is finalizing a deal to make Memphis's head coach Ryan Silverfield their new coach, and I think he'd be a good addition to Arkansas after having a good season with Memphis.
Alex Golesh, the head coach of USF, agrees to a 6-year head coach deal with Auburn. I think Auburn's been needing a good head coach for a while now. Uh, Time will tell if he's the guy. And also, Kentucky fired head coach Mark Stoops and hires Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein as the new head coach. And in Big Ten news, Michigan State fires head coach Jonathan Smith. They hire Pat Fitzgerald, who was the former Northwestern head coach, who was fired in 2023. Fun fact about him, he was the winningest Northwestern coach in history. He signs a 5-year deal with Michigan State. BYU's coach, whose name we will not say because we don't know how to pronounce it, and Penn State have been in discussion for head coaching. UCLA is expected to hire JMU head coach Bob Chesney. And Nebraska fires their defensive coordinator John Butler after 1 season. Coastal Carolina fires head coach Tim Beck. Oklahoma State hires North Texas head coach Eric Morris. Vandy extends Clark Lea to 6 years. Oregon State hires Alabama co-offensive coordinator Jamarcus Shepard as the new head coach. Missouri extends Eli Dinkwitz. Colorado State is expected to sign UConn head coach Jim Mora, and North Texas is hiring Neil Brown, head coach of West Virginia.
Some news in the transfer portal. Michigan State wide receiver Nick Marsh plans to enter the transfer portal after 2 seasons with the team. He's expected to be the top wide receiver in the portal cycle. UCLA defensive back Scooter Jackson has entered
Scooter!
is planning to enter the portal. You UNC wide receiver Chris Culliver is expected to enter the portal.
And UConn star linebacker Umar Diamande and star defensive back Cam Chadwick are transferring,
Planning said transfer.
planning to transfer. And lastly, 5-star quarterback Jared Curtis flips from Georgia to Vandy, becoming the highest ranked signee in program history. I expect that will probably continue with how well they did this year. Lastly, we're going to cover some games and upsets. Pitt beat number 16 Georgia Tech, which um, kind of marks the end for their season, I suppose. Although they did bounce back the next week, didn't they? No, they lost to Georgia. So the Georgia Tech dream season has come to an end. TCU defeats number 23 Houston. Number 16 Texas upsets number 3 Texas A&M, which is a huge win for them given how shaky the start of their season was. And then Wisconsin upsets number 21 Illinois.
Right, moving on to the NFL segment. First thing I want to talk about is Thanksgiving Day. The Chiefs and Cowboys game actually had a record number of viewers at 57.2 million. It is now considered the most watched regular season game ever, beating the previous record by approximately 36%.
I don't quite get why it did so well this year, considering how mediocre both teams are this year. Like, I know, traditionally speaking, these are two of the most, um, I guess, watched teams in recent years. But I don't know. Where do you think that number is coming from? Something specific?
Um, I guess there is a lot of Chiefs fans and a lot of Cowboys fans, and with it being on Thanksgiving Day, Cowboys being one of two teams that play every Thanksgiving, people eating food with their families don't have really much anything else to do because NBA's not on, and obviously there's a lot of NFL fans.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit older. This was Thursday night 2 weeks ago. The Bills struggled against the Texans despite having no CJ Stroud. They ended up losing 23-19, and Ray Davis had a 97-yard kick return touchdown for all of you kick return fans.
Yeah, we had like 5 other kick returns planned, but we decided to cut them. So if you're a kick return fan, this is not a good episode for you. You can leave now. No, I'm kidding.
The Texans also had 8 sacks in that game.
Josh Allen was 8-0 on Thursday night games prior to this loss, which means it was the best Thursday night QB record, minimum of 5 starts since 1950. He also is now 0-4 in Houston, and he's never been sacked 8 or more times in a game. So, was it a bit of a fluke game? Maybe, but they really had no excuse for losing.
At least they bounced back this week against Pittsburgh.
True. Also, the Cowboys came back after being down 21-0 to win 24-21 on a game-winning 42-yard field goal. This was against the Eagles. I know this made a lot of Eagles fans upset because it's their rival.
Brock Purdy didn't have a very good game against the Panthers 2 weeks ago on Monday night. He had 3 interceptions, but the team was still able to win that game. He has 1 touchdown and 6 interceptions this year on throws of 15 or more yards,
But that was 2 weeks ago, so it could be worse. I don't
or
know.
better.
Or better. Or the same.
Who knows?
Well, we could know, but we're not going to look it up. Because we don't like the 49ers. Ain't that right?
Yeah, rivals.
Which is ironic because I believe the Seahawks' official rivals is the Cardinals. But personally, I think it should be swapped to the 49ers as of recent years.
Yeah, because the Cardinals suck this year.
They suck every year. Anyways, we have some milestones.
All right, these milestones were the week before Thanksgiving. Patrick Mahomes became the fastest player to reach 35,000 career yards. 122 games is what it took him to do that. And he broke Matt Stafford's record, which took him 126 games to get to 35,000 yards.
Yeah, I mean, Patrick is undoubtedly one of the best QBs of all time. Um, love him or hate him.
Definitely the best of this generation, if he's not the best of all time. Trey McBride joins Travis Kelce and Tony Gonzalez as the only tight ends to have at least 5 catches in 12 or more consecutive games. He ties Jimmy Graham for 301 receptions, and that's the most receptions by a tight end in his first 4 seasons.
And he ended up breaking that record this week. You know, I want to talk about Jimmy Graham for a second because you brought up the name of a Seahawks legend. Do you think he's the best tight end that also has a pilot's license in NFL history?
I don't know too many tight ends that do a pilot's license.
Well, it's undoubtable then.
he's he's unanimously the best.
I agree.
Dak Prescott surpassed Tony Romo for most passing yards in Cowboys franchise history.
Do you think most Cowboy fans like Tony Romo?
Uh, yeah, I think Tony Romo was a pretty good quarterback for their team.
See, that's intriguing because I think a lot of people hate Dak Prescott, and he seems like he's arguably better than Tony Romo, despite some injuries and stuff.
Yeah, that's impressive that Dak Prescott was able to do that in, I assume, fewer seasons than Tony Romo.
JSN.
JSN passes DK Metcalf for the Seahawks single season receiving yards record.
Why did you say it like that?
Make people want to listen to that part a little more. JSN also hits his career high 7 touchdowns on the season last week. He had a 63-yard touchdown, which is the longest touchdown of his career. He's the
That's
first
long.
He's the first player with 75 plus receiving yards in his first 11 games of a season, which he did not have 75 plus last week. So that was snapped. JSN has the most yards pre-Thanksgiving in NFL history, and he also
Gobble
has
gobble.
the top 10 receptions in franchise history at 245. TJ Watt passes his brother JJ Watt for career sacks. He did it on a strip sack touchdown.
I mean, what better way to do it than that? Do you think TJ is better than his brother?
I think JJ was a more talked about player. He was definitely feared from offensive lineman standpoint. I don't hear about TJ Watt as much as I hear about JJ Watt. I know TJ's having a little bit of a down year this year. He was a defensive player of the year candidate last year. Um, but this year I haven't heard anything about him being close to being a defensive player of the year candidate.
I think JJ is a bit more, maybe not athletic, but he plays a bit more aggressive in some sense, and you can see that in his play style. But I think TJ is maybe a little bit better overall as like a whole package.
I mean, I don't know how many years JJ played, but I'm pretty sure he did that in less seasons. So I would say TJ is probably a better player overall, but JJ had a bigger impact, I would say, on like the offensive line. Like they were doubling him because they knew they couldn't stop him if they did one on ones.
And he was a better quarterback.
What?
JJ Watt played quarterback for a couple snaps.
Oh, right.
He has, I think, maybe 4 touchdowns or so from throwing, not from like defense. In other news, Shadur Sanders had his first NFL start. He went 11 for 20 with 209 yards, a touchdown, and an interception in his win against the Raiders. But this was coming off of the worst passer rating in NFL history, minimum of 15 throws. And the reason that that game wasn't a start was because he came in after Dylan Gabriel got injured.
I did see a stat that he would have had a better passer rating if he would have spiked the ball every play.
It's true, his passer rating was 13.5.
I guess it was low because he threw an interception, I believe, which is worse than an incompletion.
Yeah, I think he had a lot of incompletions and an interception and not very many yards. But, he came into the game late and stuff, so not exactly his fault necessarily. He also became the first Browns starting QB to win since 1995. Is this the beginning of something big? Probably not.
Josh Allen passes Cam Newton for the most rushing touchdowns by a quarterback in a career. Josh Allen achieved this mark with 76 touchdowns. He got that record breaking touchdown against the Steelers. Cam Newton had 75. He also becomes the second all time to have 6 plus consecutive seasons with at least 30 total touchdowns. Only other player is Drew Brees with 9 consecutive seasons.
That really speaks words about Drew Brees since he didn't rush that much.
Yeah, I think Drew Brees could have won a couple more MVPs than what he did. He was definitely a good player, but not always talked about as one of the best quarterbacks all time. Josh Allen also gets the fifth most touchdowns in his first 8 seasons ever by passing Brett Favre, who had 213. Russell Wilson had 227. Dan Marino had 241. Peyton Manning had 244. And Patrick Mahomes has 245. Those are the players that are currently ahead of him. Matt Stafford becomes the fourth player ever to have 30 or more touchdowns and fewer than 5 interceptions through 11 games. Aaron Rodgers in 2007 and 2011 MVP season and 2020 MVP season. Tom Brady's 2007 MVP season and Patrick Mahomes' 2020 season are the only other players that have achieved this. Matt Stafford also had 30 touchdowns and 2 interceptions as of last week before or the week before Thanksgiving. Also, during the week of Thanksgiving, Chris Collinsworth or week before Thanksgiving, my bad, Chris Collinsworth had his 500th career game commentating, and that was the Rams versus the Bucks game. You think Chris Collinsworth is one of the best commentators all time?
He's not the Patrick Mahomes guy, is he?
Yeah, he's the one that glazes Patrick Mahomes.
I personally think he's one of the worst.
I mean, he's got to be somewhat decent if he's had that many games
He
commentated.
probably used to be respectable, but as of lately, I think his voice is a bit annoying and he talks about Mahomes a lot. But I think Tony Romo is pretty bad too. And they usually pair them together, right?
I don't remember, but I know Tony Romo also likes to glaze Patrick Mahomes.
Well, moving on to the week of Thanksgiving. Miles Garrett is on pace to break the single season sack record. He needs 4 in the next 5 games. I think he'll probably do it. Devontae Adams becomes the fourth player in NFL history to have 13 plus touchdowns over 4 or more seasons. The others are Jerry Rice, Terrell Owens, and Randy Moss. Stafford passes Matt Ryan for the eighth most at all-time passing yards. Trey McBride passes Tony Gonzalez for second most consecutive games with 5 plus receptions by a tight end. Zach Ertz passes Shannon Sharp for the fifth most receptions in a tight end's career. Ahead of him are Tony Gonzalez, Jason Witten, Travis Kelce, and Antonio Gates. Also, the Steelers allowed 249 rushing yards against the Bills, which is the most in their stadium's history. Before throwing 2 interceptions Sunday, Matthew Stafford had 28 consecutive touchdown passes without an interception, which was the longest streak in NFL history. Also, for the first time since the NFL added the third Thanksgiving game, all 3 underdog teams won. I was watching the Lions game, and they tend to blow Thanksgiving games. I believe they have a pretty bad record in the last 10 years. So I was not too surprised. The Broncos beat the Commanders in overtime after the Commanders tried a 2-point conversion to win the game, and they failed.
Currently, the first seed and the seventh seed in the NFC have the same amount of wins.
That's crazy.
Also, the Bears are the first seed in the NFC with the 49ers being the seventh seed. They both sit at 9 wins.
Speaking of the NFC, um, the NFC West has 3 teams with 9 wins currently, and then there's the Cardinals. Is it safe to say they're the best division in the NFL this season?
Yeah, I believe they're the best team in the NFL this season. Wait, I think it's safe to say. I think it's safe to say that the NFC West is the best division in the NFL right now, and quite frankly, over the last 4 seasons.
It really sucks as a Seahawks fan to have to deal with a division this good.
Yeah, because you never know if you're going to take the top of the division or third in the division because you got the Cardinals.
Yeah, and taking third can make it where you don't make the playoffs, right?
Well, right now the 49ers are in the playoffs. So, and I believe at one time we almost had all four NFC West teams in the playoffs, but one of them didn't make it.
Mm. Speaking of the Seahawks defense gets 1 forced fumble and 4 interceptions against the Vikings.
One of those interceptions happened to be Ernest Jones, which was an 85-yard pick six.
And he had 2 picks that game. Also, the Vikings waived Adam Thielen, who was claimed by the Steelers. And the Steelers and Darius Slay agreed to part ways, and he was claimed Wednesday on waivers by the Bills. Do you think he'll be a big addition to the Bills?
I mean, if he wasn't a good player for the Steelers, what would make him much of a player for the Bills? But the Bills have a good defense this season. They're on the verge of a playoff berth. I don't know.
Sometimes you just gotta get out of a locker room and go to another,
Yeah, that's
and
true.
that can make you play better.
Oh, ESPN notification. The Ravens and tight end Mark Andrews reached an agreement on a 3-year deal, resulting in a $39.3 million extension. That includes $26 million guaranteed.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. We got a live announcement. News. We got a live we got breaking news.
Live.
Except it's not live and it's probably not heard here first because this will come out in 2 days. Hopefully. If I can edit this 3 hour long podcast of us laughing. All right, now we're going to move on to the injuries this week. So Baker Mayfield has a low grade strain on his non throwing shoulder. Last I heard, he came back to play and then re injured it, and it's unknown how severe that is. Justin Herbert underwent surgery in Los Angeles to stabilize a fracture in his left hand. It's his return to play is considered day by day, and his status for next Monday's game against Philadelphia will be determined later in the week. Obviously, that's a pretty big loss for them if they can't play against Philadelphia, who's one of the better teams in the NFL right now. Deshaun Watson, who ruptured his Achilles tendon in 2024, is set to return to practice. He's one of the Browns' what, 6 QBs? So will that make a difference? I don't know.
I wonder if they'll make him the starter when he comes back or if they'll keep one of the rookies as the starter.
Honestly, I could see them rocking Shadur another game, seeing how he plays, and going from there. And Mike Evans, who had a broken clavicle in October, as well as Jalen McMillan, who had a neck injury in August, also returned to practice. It's good to see Mike Evans back. I know he's probably going to retire fairly soon. And Marvin Harrison Jr. on the Cardinals had a heel injury, and he's day to day. The Bills' Joey Bosa has a hamstring injury and is week to week. Trayvon Diggs on the Cowboys started a 21-day practice window. The Colts' Sauce Gardner has a calf injury, and he's not placed on injury reserve, but he is expected to miss 3 games or less. And the Vikings' Aaron Jones has a shoulder injury. He's day to day. And Saints' Justin Reed had a knee injury. A condition is uncertain. Also, the Steelers' Patrick Queen has a lower back injury, and he's questionable against the Ravens. The Lions, Amon-Ra St. Brown is questionable. I remember him getting injured in the Thanksgiving game, and that's obviously a big blow to their team overall. So we will see if he can come back soon. And then lastly, 49ers Kyle Juszczyk has fractured ribs, and he will be reevaluated after the bye week.
Moving on to the NBA segment of this podcast, we came across that Mikal Bridges hasn't missed a game in his NBA career. He's up to 570 plus games consecutively played. He's the fourth most in NBA history to start a career.
And I believe he's about 8th place in the actual all-time list, but 4th in his start. I think Mikal Bridges is honestly one of the most underrated players. Um, Not even just from a health standpoint. Obviously, having a healthy player is very valuable to a team, but I think he's just a good shooter, um, pretty athletic. I don't know if he's the best defender in the world, but if that's not what your team's looking for, I mean, he's definitely a solid guy to have on your team.
Yeah, I think he's a solid player. I mean, even if he's not scoring a ton of points for your team, he's still there putting up stats. He's still there playing defense. I mean, you don't have to go out and have some random bench player go in and play because one of your good players has family related problems, or I don't even know
What?
what I'm
What?
saying right now.
Anyways, yeah, and he has one of the coolest signature celebrations, I think. The little pistol handgun wave
Oh
thing.
yeah,
Does he even do that anymore? Because I think John Morant got in trouble for that.
I don't know. I haven't really seen any of his highlights or games in a little
Yeah,
while.
he doesn't really get covered much, does he?
No, not really.
Okay, in other news, in case you didn't know, the NBA is set to launch a European League in 2027. And there's rumors that Manchester United is reportedly forming one of those teams. I believe it's about 16 teams on launch day is what they're looking for. I have no clue if they're going to do any sort of crossovers with the NBA. As far as I know, there's not a ton of information right now on it. Um, but this will be cool. And honestly, with the way the NBA is going lately, it might be where some US fans turn to. What do you think?
I don't know. I haven't really heard much about this, so I don't really have much of a take here.
Do you see yourself watching this if it's available to watch in the US easily?
Possibly.
Great. All right, moving on. We got three-time NBA dunk champion Mac McClung setting a career high of 42 points with 7 threes, 81% shooting in the G League. This is his sixth career 40-plus game, and it kind of begs the question, should he go back to the main league?
I mean, he's a good player in the G League, but I don't know if he's really a top tier athlete. I mean, he'd probably be a good role player off the bench, but I don't know if he'd be a main star in the main league.
I honestly think he just hasn't had the right team yet. I think he could easily be a bench player, worst case scenario, if not a starter, if he develops right.
LeBron's 21-year All NBA streak is on the line.
What?
If he misses 3 more games, he becomes ineligible of the 65 game threshold that was set a few years ago to become an awardee.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about this threshold because I don't like load management that much. Um, aside from like if it's absolutely medically necessary, then it's fine. But it seems like it's hurting some other players that are just injured that might have had a really good year. Um, yeah, what do you think?
I mean, it sucks for players who get injured more than once. Like if LeBron got injured again, he's going to be ineligible. It's not like I don't, he didn't miss to miss. Like he didn't miss because of load management. He didn't miss because of personal problems. He was coming back from an injury. Well, if he gets injured again later on in the season and he happens to miss 3 more games, he's out of the award race, and he could have been averaging 27 points a game and easily been all NBA third team.
Yeah, I do think there probably needs to be some sort of limit though, but maybe that looks like they have to play 20 games or something. I don't know. Because if you played like one game and got injured, for example, then you could average like 40 points, you know?
I could see maybe 50 games. I probably wouldn't go down to 20.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Tyrese Maxey on the 76ers had a 54-point career high game against the Bucks, and Reed Shepherd scored 18 points in the second quarter alone against the Nuggets. Um, is this a sign for things to come with him?
I mean, I haven't really heard of Reed Shepard or know who he is, but
I know he was pretty hyped coming out of college.
I mean, I'd be looking forward to hear more about him, see if he progresses. I'm all about seeing growth in players and growth in teams.
Yeah, we're big growers here. No.
What?
And now on a sadder note, for some, Chris Paul reportedly is retiring after 21 years. And to make matters worse, the Clippers have announced that they are parting ways with him. And apparently, he was not on speaking terms with coach Ty Lue. I kind of hope the Thunder sign him if he's going to have any shot at getting a ring. Um, but love him or hate him, it's sad to see one of the legends of the game, at least of our lifetime growing up, finally retiring.
Yeah, but I did see that the Clippers said they're going to try to help him get to another team.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good. A lot of people are pretty sad about this. They seem to think the Clippers are going to win the championship this year. Um, I'm not quite sure why they think that, especially when you look at things historically. And and they're 5-16. So, and also the Thunder are having a historic year. Um, yeah. Speaking of the Clippers, James Harden scored 55 points against the Hornets and broke the Clippers franchise record for most points in a game. Um, and then going back to the Thunder, Jalen Williams missed out on $40 million, and he can't get any awards this season because he missed too many games. However, I believe he is officially back on the team, so that's a big addition to their team. Honestly, this might be a win for the Thunder, since they will get to save money.
I believe that $40 million is in his contract that he had to try to win an award or something.
Yeah, and the Thunder are projected to have the most wins in NBA history in a single season, according to some metrics. They also are dominating teams. They have probably five NBA All-Defensive players on their team, and yet they're outscoring their opponents by like 40 points. Sometimes they don't even play some of their starters in the fourth quarter, and they still win by 20 or 30 points. Um, yeah, I don't know really what to say. I think everyone's gonna start watching the Europe League.
They're also the fourth team in NBA history to win 21 of their first 22 games.
Yeah, they're dominant for sure. Personally, I'm not a big fan of watching Shea uh, when he foul baits. I know there's a bit of a skill to it, but I just don't find that fun to watch. Uh, but it's a fun team overall. And I remember I told you this, what, like 5 years ago, when we saw that they had like 30 picks coming up, that I told you, I think they're going to win a championship within the next 5 years. You remember that?
I do remember that.
And I was right.
Congratulations.
And now that it's happened, I have to live with watching them win over and over.
And possibly breaking your Warrior 70.
And yeah, that as well. Although I wouldn't be surprised if I'm not sure if they play the Warriors again this season, but if Curry somehow has like a 60-point game and just
And
stops
the
that from
Warriors
happening.
still lose.
Well, that yeah, that could happen. You're right. Um, and lastly, the Pistons' 13-game win streak was snapped by the Celtics. Now we're going to move on to the NBA Cup. We have the Thunder against the Suns, the Lakers versus the Spurs, the Magic versus the Heat, and the Raptors versus the Knicks. I'm really excited to watch Wemby play against the Lakers.
So to make this make a little more sense to the people, I know we talked about the NBA Cup in the first episode. So this is where the Thunder, the Lakers, and the Spurs all won their group, and then the Suns they had the best record, but didn't win their group, so they lost to the Thunder. So they ended up making it because they had one of the best records, and then the Heat was the other team that made it by not winning a group.
Looking at this bracket, I was suddenly reminded that the Magic changed their logo this year. I saw a lot of people like it. Personally, I'm not a fan of it. What do you think?
I mean, I kind of like the new logo. It gives them a little refresh. I mean, the old logo reminds you of some bad Magic teams, and they're having a decent season this year. They have Black, they have Suggs, they have a pretty decent team this year. I'm pretty sure they're one of the top teams in the East right now.
Yeah. And speaking of them, I saw some people saying that if the Warriors picked up Jonathan Isaac from them, that would be probably a good fit. And I heard there was rumors that Bam Adebayo might come to the Warriors. Do you think either of them would be a good fit there?
Honestly, I don't know if Isaac is as good as he used to be. I haven't really seen much of him or heard much of him
So,
since.
from what I know, he got injured very early on and was out for like 2 years. And I believe as of lately, he's really started to come back into form. And he might not put up like a ton of points, but he's one of the best defensive players in the league.
I mean, that'd be a good pickup for the Warriors. I know they've been kind of messing around with Jonathan Kaminga, starting him, not starting him. But I think if they picked up Bam Adebayo, they definitely will make a playoff push. I don't know if they don't pick him up, if they're going to really be a playoff team. I could see them being in the play-in tournament, but I don't know if I could see them making it into the playoffs other than the play-in tournament.
All right, moving on.
Luka Doncic becomes the first player in NBA history to score 400 plus points and 100 plus assists through 12 games.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's an NBA or a ESPN type stat.
It's still impressive though.
Yeah, I agree.
And on to our next impressive stat. In this decade alone, Jokic is ranked first in 8 stats and second in wins. Those stats being points, rebounds, assists, steals, plus minus, double doubles, triple doubles, and MVPs. He is by far one of the best players to ever play this game.
You think he's the best player to have a horse racing team and play in the NBA?
You know, he might just be similar to Jimmy Graham. I think he's unanimous in that category. Anyways, Cooper Flag becomes the youngest player to score 35 points in a game. LeBron is the only other player to score 30 plus points before turning 19. That's crazy. I know we talked about in the past that he had a bit of a slow start, but he started to, you know, get into gear, and it looks like he's just getting better and better every day.
Yeah, I think he's definitely one of the top candidates for Rookie of the Year.
In other news, Jalen Johnson of the Hawks scored 41 points against Philly, which is his career high. Um, Also, a name that many of you probably have never heard of, Hansel Emmanuel. He has signed a 10-day contract with the Santa Cruz Warriors. This is the Warriors G League affiliate, of course, and it wasn't like a traditional 10-day contract. It was specifically a contract to basically go through a training camp with the possibility of him getting signed. So you know, he might not get signed, but it's still really cool to see that happen. And the reason for that, if you don't know, is that he only has one arm. He's a story that me and Nick has actually been following for a while, ever since we heard about it. And watching his highlights, I mean, he's athletic. He is very athletic. Um, and just watching how he adapts to having only one arm and like he gets steals, he can shoot threes, he's got pretty good dribbles. It's really fun to watch. Do you have anything to say about that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, starting out watching him, his highlights in high school. I mean, he was really big. He was popping off, dunking the ball, shooting threes, crossing people up. He's definitely a fun player to watch, especially given his disadvantage of only having one arm. I hope he pans out in the NBA or in the G League, one of the two. But I don't know if he's going to be able to because of that disadvantage of being at a higher level of play.
Yeah. I mean, so far it seems like it hasn't stopped him much. I think the biggest thing is maybe he's reached his peak. I know he didn't have like the best college stats.
I do hope if he doesn't pan out in the G League or the NBA that he hopefully signs with like the big three and like hoops there, and we still get to see some crazy highlights from him.
Yeah, I hope it works out for him. Seth Curry officially signs with the Warriors. Earlier in the year, he was on the team, then he got cut. They said it was for like financial reasons. It was kind of weird. I don't know. But yeah, he's officially on the team. He got playing time, and in his debut, he shot 85% and had 14 points. Um, if nothing less than to build some team chemistry, I think he's a solid player that you can just throw in there and he'll give you the threes. I do feel bad for the kids that get a Seth Curry jersey on Christmas Day because their parents was confused.
I think Seth Curry is honestly an underrated 3-point shooter
I believe he's one of the all-time best in terms of like percentage.
percentage.
Yeah.
So we earlier today I got an ESPN notification about Eldon Campbell. He was a former longtime Laker. He played for a couple other teams. He passed away at the age of 57. He ended up spending 15 years in the league. He played for Clemson and helped them win the ACC title his senior year. I believe it said it was their first ACC championship for their basketball program. Uh, Clemson. He was also Clemson's all-time leading scorer. He was second in all-time blocks for them, eighth in all-time rebounds. He was a three-time All ACC player and an All American player. So very sad to hear about his passing.
And he had a championship with the Pistons in 2004. So definitely a legend of the game. Maybe not super well known, but it's yeah, a sad loss for the NBA.
Yeah, it's unfortunate that he died at such a young age, and they really have no cause at the moment on what happened.
And breaking news, although I feel like we've heard this before, Giannis has talked to his agent and they've been starting conversations with the Bucks about their future together. I know there's been talks about him going to the Warriors, to the Lakers for like the last 3 years. Um, Honestly, I hope he leaves. I think that's the best for him. But I do wonder where he goes and what that team gives up in getting him.
Yeah, I think Giannis would be a good fit for a better team. I feel bad that he's on the Bucks, and he really has no help. I mean, he got that one championship a few years back, um, and I could see him being a good fit for a championship contender, a team that has money, of course, because I'm sure he could help out the Magic, but I don't know their financial situation. I think like a lower team, but also a contending team. He could be a good fit for.
Yeah. All right, now we're going to talk about the injury reports. So first of all, we got Zion with a right abductor injury. We'll be back around December 26th.
Trey Young went out with a knee injury. He's expected to return December 6th.
Max Struss has a foot injury and is expected to return December 12th, as well as Jarrett Allen, who with a finger, and John Morant with a calf injury. All of them are expected to come back December 12th.
Scoot Henderson is currently battling a hamstring injury. He is expected to return December 20th.
Victor Wembanyama has a calf injury and is expected to return December 17th. Is that after the NBA Cup?
The NBA Cup ends December 19th, so it'll be after the first round.
Okay, so my earlier statement about watching Wemby play the Lakers is not going to happen. Next, we got Devin Booker with a right groin injury. He is expected to be reevaluated next week.
Lastly, we got Stephen Curry.
Wardell Stephen Curry the second.
He's got a quadricep injury, and he's expected to return December 12th.
Mark your calendars. All right, now we're gonna move on to some various sports news. First of all, I wanted to talk about the MLS playoffs. I wanted to talk about this last week, but we had the Thanksgiving special, so it's a little bit late. We are currently at the final between Miami and Vancouver, and that is set for December 6th. Uh, as much as I'm a fan of Messi, he knocked out my favorite team, Cincinnati, 4-0. So that kind of sucks.
Yeah, take the L.
Are you a Messi or a Ronaldo guy?
I'm a messy guy. That sounded weird.
I think you need a napkin. Okay. Um, and then moving on. For the NAIA Cross Country National Championship, Taylor University finished fifth for men and first in women. This was a big deal at my school, which is Taylor University. And one of my professors, I believe, coaches for them. So that was really cool to see. We've had a good team the past couple years. I heard the men didn't get anywhere close to their personal best, so we probably could have scored higher. But yeah, that's really cool. So shout out to them.
LSU women's basketball team beats the college and SEC record for consecutive 100 plus point games. They're currently 8-0 and they've beaten every one of their teams with 100 plus points.
And some of the teams they've played only score like 30. So yeah, they've been dominant the last couple years. I believe they haven't won the championship in a while though, right?
I don't really follow women's basketball that much, so I don't know. I think they were a Final Four team last year, though, at least.
They won their first championship in 2023, but I don't think they've won since then. So yeah, that's
UConn won last year.
yeah, we'll see if they maybe start playing a little different once they get to like really good teams, but so far they are off to a great start and it kind of reminds me of the Thunder. Unranked Ohio State women's soccer team beat number one ranked Notre Dame in double overtime with 34 seconds left to advance to the Sweet 16. Then they made it to the Elite Eight after beating Baylor. However, they lost to Florida State 4-1. Either way, it's cool to see a big upset like that, especially in the final seconds, especially when it's Ohio State.
In other news, in men's NCAA basketball, this season they set the longest win streak by ranked teams against unranked opponents during any point of a season in the AP poll history. They went 85 and 0. I don't know if that increased or if that record got broken because or I guess that record stopped going up because a team lost. I haven't really kept up with college basketball this season.
Yeah, I haven't either. But either way, it's really impressive that every ranked team won like that. All right. Next we got some MLB stats that are worth pointing out. The all MLB team has existed for 7 seasons, and Shohei Ohtani has been on it 8 times as a starting pitcher and a designated hitter. It's not exactly surprising that he was on it so much, but it's unique that he's on it more than it's been around.
Yeah, he's a really good player. I could probably see him winning it again next year as a starting pitcher and potentially a designated hitter.
Yeah, for sure. Now on to the track and field side of things. Quincy Wilson, who was the youngest U.S. male gold medalist in Olympic history, has committed to Maryland. I believe he had offers from UCLA, Texas A&M, USC, and South Carolina. However, he chose to go with Maryland, as far as I know, because he grew up there and their coach also, I believe, is a Olympic gold medalist. So I think wherever he goes, he's gonna have a successful career. And yeah, I've been following him since he broke that record. I believe it was the 4x4 or maybe 4x8, and I think he only came in because someone got injured. So they were worried that the U.S. might lose. And I don't think he like broke any speed records or anything himself, but he kept up with the other people pretty well, enough to allow the US to win. So I've been kind of following him ever since. So that's cool that he decided to go to college. He probably could have skipped it if he wanted to. Um, but yeah, that's cool. Do you have any thoughts about that, Nick?
I mean, is there a professional sprinting team besides the Olympics?
I'm not actually sure. I know they have like US tournaments all year round, but I don't know how you like get signed for that. Either way, I'm sure he could have um found his way on to one of those teams.
I came across this last week. Ohio High School Athletic Association decided it was going to allow athletes to officially sign NIL deals, which is now available in 44 other states as well.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people talking about this. Obviously there's pros and cons to it, but I think like you pointed out, the majority of the states already are allowing it, so it kind of feels like Ohio's behind. Do you think it's a good thing?
I've heard mixed feelings on it. I'm not a big fan of high school athletes getting paid to do sports. In a way, it's kind of promoting players to go to other schools, and which isn't really the best because they're still under the age of 18 and they're getting this money to go to another school. Well, some of them probably don't have driver's licenses.
I mean, a lot of the like really good players often go to private high schools anyways, so I don't know if it influences them as much as people think.
I know
Um,
with Florida, they have that one high school, IMG, where a lot of their good players go. So I'm wondering if maybe they have an NIL thing associated with that, and that's why they have so many good players going to that football academy.
it might be. I think it's more just the academy being good. Um, I have mixed feelings about it. I think it's a great opportunity for them to make money at a young age, which can be um helpful in their life, in their college pursuits, whatever that looks like. But I do think there needs to be rules that kind of limit, like, if you can recruit people based on it, and there probably is. But yeah, it was worth mentioning. Also, Pitt upsets Ohio State's men's basketball the same way 2 years in a row. It was almost exactly 1 year apart, too. It was only off by a day. And it was a game-winning buzzer beater three. It's sad to see it happen twice. Of course, Ohio State's going to go out there and blow games. It seems like their basketball team is always really good at the start of the year, and then they just blow games that they should not lose.
Yeah, Ohio State had a good start to the season. They were 6-0, um, and they were one of the few teams that were still undefeated. I don't know how many were still undefeated, but that's still impressive for Ohio State. They're normally kind of a middle of the pack team, but they were able to achieve 6 wins and 0 losses to begin the season, which is pretty impressive
Yeah.
for where they've been coming from.
And lastly, Nebraska's women's volleyball finished 30-0, only dropping one set in Big Ten play. They now go on to the playoffs. That is an insane stat.
Do you know if they're ranked at all?
They are ranked number one.
Are they the only undefeated team then?
I don't know. I think I heard that they have a lot of seniors too. So it's kind of like a last dance for some of them.
I think that would be a good thing to follow maybe in upcoming episodes. Their Nebraska if they win the championship or not.
All right, now we're going to move on to our special segment for today. I don't know if I explained this earlier or even mentioned what our special segment was, but we're going to do a NBA draft and then debate whose team would win, and you guys will have to let us know in the comments. Um, so the way it worked was we played rock, paper, scissors, and the winner got to go first. I won 2-0. So I get to pick first. Now, how we picked the players was we picked three players from every position, and we didn't do coaches or a six man or bench or anything like that. But we asked AI to generate three players for every position, and we prefaced that they need to be kind of random, like mostly good players, but it could have bench players, it could have kind of lesser known players, it could have old players, it could have current players, and um, I don't think it gave us any bench players, or at least not like at the height of their career. But I thought the list was random enough that it would make for an interesting draft, and hopefully that would make it debatable who wins rather than we just pick the all-time greats. So, our options for point guard, John Stockton, Gary Payton, and Tony Parker.
Options for the shooting guard position are Dwayne Wade, Ray Allen, and Drew Holiday.
For small forwards, we got Scottie Pippen, Paul Pierce, and Dominique Wilkins.
For power forward, we have Kevin Garnett, Chris Webber, and Rasheed Wallace.
And lastly, for centers, we have Hakeem Olajuwon, Patrick Ewing, and Marc Gasol. Now, I don't know about you, Nick, but I wasn't prepping going into this.
Yeah, I didn't prep for this, but I kind of had an idea.
So this is a live on the spot draft. And since I get to go first, this could make or break my team. Personally, I love having a good defense and I love having a good point guard. So I think I'm going to start. Actually, I need to look at this list and see like what players are significantly better than the others. Dwayne Wade is looking pretty good, but I think I'm going to take John Stockton. I typically like more shooting uh, point guards, but I think I'm going to build my team around his passing.
That's a good pick. I like that pick.
Were you thinking of taking him?
Yeah, he was probably my go-to point guard, honestly.
Okay.
Well, with that being said, I'm going to take a shooting guard. And what better shooting guard to go with than Ray Allen?
Oh, I thought for sure you were going to take Wade.
Well, Ray Allen is one of the most clutch shooting guards that I've ever watched. One of the best three-point shooters all time.
Yeah, I
He's going to be
honestly,
a great fit if we're down.
yeah, I was thinking of taking him because I figured John could pass to him for three. I'm not sure that Dwayne is a good fit with John Stockton because they're both kind of facilitators. So I might have to take Drew Holiday later because he has good defense. Um, but since you already took a shooting guard, I think I'll move on to a different position. Um, I'm going to take because I feel like the centers is the weakest, and I was kind of worried you would go for this first. I'm gonna take Hakeem Olajuwon. What are your thoughts on that? Were you thinking of taking him?
Yeah, I think he was probably one of my top center picks, but I think I'd be okay with Patrick Ewing. But I'm not going to pick him next, obviously, because with my next pick, I'm going to take a power forward, and that's going to be Kevin Garnett.
Yep, that's a good pick. I was definitely thinking of taking him.
Be nice to have some defense on the team at the big man spot, especially with you having Hakeem Olajuwon. And now I got defense and shooting.
Okay, I kind of want to go Dominique Wilkins, but I think I need more scoring in terms of like 3 point. Because I feel like having Dominique and Hakeem could be a really dominant team, but I need scoring, so I'm gonna have to go with Scottie Pippen as my small forward. I'm a little worried you were not gonna take Scottie though.
I'm a little shook. I was going to take Scottie Pippen.
Okay, that is a good pick then.
um, I think now that all of the positions are out of the way, I can pick whatever point guard I want or whatever small forward or center. I think I'm just going to go ahead and take Tony Parker for my point guard.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really go wrong with him. Honestly, one of the more underrated point guards in NBA history.
Actually, I changed that. I'm going to go with Gary Payton. We don't have a playmaker on our team really, with Ray Allen being the main 3-point shooter.
Okay. I think of him more for his defense, but he's definitely a good playmaker.
Plus, we got that chemistry now with Gary Payton and Kevin Garnett.
Fair point. All right, I got shooting guard and power forward left, which you have picked, so I'm gonna go with Rasheed Wallace. Um, Chris Webber is a great passer, but I kind of already have that with John Stockton, and I think Rasheed will give us a little bit more scoring. Um, I believe he was a bit better of a three-point shooter than Chris Webber. And for you?
All right. So the only right answer here, in my opinion, I think I'm going to go with Paul Pierce. Add to the chemistry. I'm basically building a Supersonics team right now with Ray Allen, Gary Payton, and Kevin Garnett.
Yeah, I'm starting to notice the pattern. All right, and for my last guy, oh, this is tough. Dwayne Wade is one of the best of all time, but Drew Holiday has good defense, and he's probably a better three-point shooter, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
I think I want to build my team with a little bit more shooting. So I think I'm gonna go with Drew Holiday. I've always been a big fan of his. I want good defense, and he's consistent, and he's a decent three-point shooter.
Well, with that being said, at the center position, I think I'm going to take Patrick Ewing. In my eyes, he's a better player than Marcus Saul. He's got that defensive side, he's got the scoring side. He was a Knicks legend. I think he'd be a good fit for our team, adding more defense, a little bit more scoring.
Yeah, that's fair. Before we debate, I want to ask AI which team it thinks would win because, after all, that's what gave us the players. So I asked in a seven-game series which team would win and why. It gave us a couple matchups between our players, but I'm kind of going to skip that. And it said for my team, it's a defensive juggernaut with balanced offense and versatility as well as rim protection. While your team is good at shooting, isolating, posting, and mid-range. So basically, you're an offensive powerhouse with a decent defense too, but a little less balanced than mine. You also have good shot creation and clutch scoring. In a seven-game series, my team is most likely to win 4-2 or 4-3 because Olajuwon is the biggest difference maker, outclassing Ewing and anchoring defense. Pippen neutralizes Pierce, forcing your team to rely on Allen and Garnett. Stockton controls the pace and ensures that my team doesn't get overwhelmed by runs, and your team would steal games with hot shooting, but over a full series, my squad's defense and balance would prevail. Thoughts?
AI has a hot take.
You think?
We got the Supersonics plus Patrick Ewing. It didn't say anything about team chemistry.
That's fair. Um, but I mean, we're assuming these teams are practiced all year and stuff. I think with today's training, your team could be very explosive, like it said, but I do think my team's defense, I think, would really help. And I don't think our shooting is terrible. So it's not like I don't think we could catch up if you're scoring a lot of threes. Um, I'm kind of like 60-40 on this. I think my team wins most of the time, but I could see a world where your team wins in a seven-game series.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think your team has a good chance at winning, and I think my team does too. I think it would come down to a game seven, actually, if they did play.
I could see that. Who do you think would be the MVP? for both of our teams.
Like if your team won or if my team won.
Yeah,
I could probably see Elijah one being the MVP for your team,
that's what I was thinking.
and then probably Garnett for our team.
I could also see Scottie Pippen having like 40-point games and being the MVP. Well, I think we'll leave it to the comments then. Let us know in the comments which team you think would win and why. Um, I think that's gonna about do it. Again, sorry that this is a bit longer than usual, but um, we hopefully won't have to cover 2 weeks worth much anymore. I mean, there might be a couple times in the future if we have like some sort of break, but either way, next week will be normal, and I'm not sure what we're gonna do yet for that week, but I think it's gonna be a bit more special and planned out than this week because with how much news we had to cover, we kind of just wanted to do something fun and something that wouldn't take too long. So that's why we did this draft. Do you have anything to add, Nick?
No, we hope to see you back next week. I had fun in this special segment, and I hope to see your guys' comments on which team you think will win.
Yeah, join us next week. It's going to be interesting.
Actually, I have one shout out I want to make.
Okay,
SBB Quick Shooter. This podcast was interesting.
I agree. It was quite interesting. We'll see you guys next week.
See ya.